is where the fun begins.
Hello there. How's it going?
For Diana, Lee, Inosanto, and Eman Esfandi! I apologize for the non-cushy seats here, but listen, that's the joy right there. You get to look out upon the masses. Your friend Fawn is back there. He was eyeballing me.
You said Fawn?
Talk to him, please.
Did you say Fawn?
Fawn? Yes.
Oh, I said Fawn.
I don't call him that to his face. No, never. How are you guys doing today?
We're really good.
Really great.
I absolutely love it. I'm a super big fan of everything that you guys are into creatively, commercially, and I'm going to talk about all of it because I think that as creators have different outlets for your voice. Iman, you do spoken word, you drop music, that's fantastic. Diana, your background in martial arts.
Thank you.
So there's so much creativity in you both, and I just kind of got to know, like, where was the start of that for you as a means of expression in terms of creativity? Where did that come from for you? Oh yeah, I go deep.
You just went deep, yeah.
I love that. I actually didn't really grow up with any art outlets. Like, it wasn't my thing. I was trying to go pro in tennis.
Gotcha.
Still doing that. And
you were great in King Richard, by the
thank
way.
you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was an interesting first role ever booked in Big LA, whatever. I was a tennis coach,
Great.
which I had been for 8 years already. So I was like, I guess I'm ready.
I guess I'm
I'm really good for this role. But I didn't really have much creative outlet growing up. And it wasn't until college where I just sort of stumbled into the acting, and I just loved movies, and so I got into an acting studio and some short films, a bunch of short films, and then it actually was the acting class, the studio, and the teacher I learned from, Laurel Gray, who sort of like burst me open creatively.
Nice.
And then it was like bringing up so many things that it was almost like by necessity, I needed other outlets to process what was coming up in the acting class. It was like, oh man, I'm really hitting some walls here. And that's when I started doing slam poetry, and spoken word, and directing films and stuff like that, just as a means to like process the psychological, personal stuff coming up through acting. Because you can't really you can't hide as an actor. You're just, it's all up front. And so, but I do think acting was sort of the igniter to a lot of different stuff, the music, the writing, and all that stuff. Yeah.
You need that fuse sometimes.
Exactly.
And when it explodes, like you said, it's real. And it's so wise of you to look for different ways to capture what that energy is so that you don't fizzle out, you don't lose the opportunity. You're like, no, okay, well then this is the right voice, and then this is the right voice, and your exploration is fantastic. I love it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Diana, what about you?
For me, I was very lucky because my father, even though he was a martial artist, his sister was an actress. So she's the one that really ignited my curiosity for the performing arts.
Okay.
And so as a little girl, I would watch her on, at that time they tried doing a spin-off TV show based on The King and I.
Yeah.
So she made a guest appearance on that, and she did also, I think it was Ironside, these were all old shows
Classics.
in the 1970s, right? And so that was really the first time I really thought, oh wow, acting, wow, this is beautiful. And then of course my godfather and my dad were doing Game of Death.
No, you can't just say my godfather. Please let people know who your godfather is.
Yeah. So my godfather's the late Bruce Lee, for anybody here that loves
Yeah. It was too quiet when you said my godfather. I was like, oh, they don't know. It's time.
So between those two worlds, and my godfather, he had a father that was involved in the Chinese opera, right? So he always came up with this expression, even with my father in martial arts, express yourself, always. And so I was very lucky to have those elements around me, and I always knew as a child that I loved the performing arts. And so, so I was, brought up in martial arts, and I was brought up in acting and theater. So I was very lucky to have that around me.
Absolutely. I love the dichotomy here, where Iman, you didn't necessarily have that same presentation growing up, and you found it, and you had it this entire time, and yet you both found each other as co-workers and acting mates on this amazing show that I'll let you guys talk about. I'm not even gonna talk about it. But when it comes to the act of making things for people's consumption, and there's a lot that goes into that you have to consider. That it's not just a matter of what you want to do or what you know how to do, but thinking about how other people receive it as a poet. I know you have to think very carefully about, not just the words you're using, but the intonations, the rhythms, and making sure that people feel your intentionality behind it. As a fighter, there's a showcase of intentionality that you have to have with every move, every blow, every strike. How did you hone your voice for such a thing, to make it something that is uniquely yours?
Well, for me, I've always been taught, like, choreography, for instance, it's really like another form of dialogue.
Absolutely.
You should be able to speak with your body, even without even having to say the written word necessarily, But so that's kind of how I looked at it for me. I don't know, what was your process?
At least with poetry, it would be this interesting thing where I'd be driving back from acting class that went really tough, and I'd be emotional and my ego was hurt and whatever, breaking down, and then some like expression would just come out. Like I would just start talking in my car, like record the voice memos. At first I didn't know what I was doing. I was just like, I think I'm supposed to record this. And I would record them, and then I started going to poetry slams and seeing spoken word, and I was like, oh, that's what I'm doing. I just didn't know. And so then I started to like piece together certain voice memos that all like matched and fleshed them out, and then when it came to sort of finalizing how the intonation and the performance and the emotionality happened, it was interesting because the first time I was like, okay, I rehearsed one, I'm gonna go up and be the sacrificial poet, and it'll be my first try like doing it. Then I get up there and it's this really long-winded, like has this interesting like stutter repetition to it, and while I was up there, something just happened, and like something opened, and I'm just bawling. And I didn't know that would happen, right? And so then after I come off, I just left. I just literally was like, I don't know what just happened, and I did not mean to do that.
Right.
But then it became a process of like, okay, because they recorded it, so I was like, well, at least let me watch it. And so it actually ended up being this like back and forth process of like, okay, that's how I rehearsed it like this, but it came out like that. But that is definitely more honest. Yeah. Right? And I was in an acting class at the time, and I was having trouble being completely vulnerable. Yeah. Whereas this thing somehow unlocked that without even like a conscious decision to. So I was starting to piece together what that was. It was a really interesting like reverse engineering, but it was something about the like repetition, which is what led me to rap. To be honest, it's what because rap is all about rhythm and bars and cadence, but at first I didn't know, and so my best work, I was like, okay, if the starting line can come back around and reminds me of the subject, which reminds me of the place and takes the story along, and it was like a reverse engineering of stuff that was sort of just pouring out, and then going, okay, that's how that goes, and so. And that's what led me to music, where's the more repetitive nature of hooks and choruses and things like that. And so yeah, I think that's like the reverse engineering process was sort of how I did it. And that's also why I'm so like volume oriented, because a part of me doesn't really have like, I don't want to say doesn't have, but in the past didn't have the ability to totally discern what the piece was until I heard it or I saw it. And then I was like, oh, I got it now. Now I know how to reconfigure and categorize, and so, but yeah, that's sort of the process.
Awesome.
Yeah,
make some noise for that, y'all, please.
No, I was going to say too, because like yesterday we had the privilege of visiting the Rock and Roll Museum yesterday, and it actually brought back memories to my childhood, because my dad was like one of the first people to incorporate music into martial arts instruction with drums. So, and he and my godfather used to talk about, even in fighting, whether it's really in real life if you're competing in the ring or, on screen, that there's what you call whole beats, half beats, quarter beats. And the thing is like you want to make sure, like even when you throw a punch, you don't want to fall into the same beat, but you want to kind of express it a little bit differently, just so your opponent can't catch on to your rhythm or your beat. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. But then yet I was having this conversation with Dave Filoni.
Name drop.
I was meeting up with the Lucasfilm animation team because we were getting, I'm sure maybe some of you don't know, we're coming out on Star Wars Day, May the 4th, and Tales of the Empire. So we were having this discussion about fight scenes, but rhythm and music. There is a beat that can come with that, you know, and people don't associate it necessarily like that. But for me, that's how I grew up, you know. So,
brilliant.
Yeah.
Oh my God, the language of fighting is one that's understated, and a lot of people over assume like, oh, it's violent. You're like, no, it's natural. There's this thing that is who I am, trying to impart who I am to you.
Yeah.
Your own, like it's there's beauty to it throughout, and I absolutely adore it. Diana, if you don't mind talking about some of your work as a stunt actress.
Oh.
Again, telling stories physically and putting yourself into sometimes rough situations in order to capture what that essence is for us to experience. How did you get started with that?
Oh wow, well, first of all, it was, you know, initially, particularly coming out of high school, I wanted so much to be an actress, but it was very hard for me to find work for my type. I'm just gonna tell you that. And also too, a lot of roles were generally, especially even if it was an action film, it was really more male oriented, and so I just had a hard time. But I did on the side keep up with theater training and all that. But luckily, because of my husband Ron Balicki, I ended up somehow having this opportunity to be on a film called Barbed Wire.
Yes. Big shout out to Barbed Wire.
Yeah, and also there was another young actor just starting out, Tamora Morrison. You might know her from Boba Fett. So yeah, that's why we know Tamora from so long ago. And my husband was training Tamora, and he needed, you know, the movie required for Tamora to fight 2 people. At the time, it was written 2 men. But I ended up having to demonstrate with my husband the other part of the fight scene of the other character, and then the producer saw this, and they're like, "Oh, she can move. Oh, maybe we can change this to a woman." And that's what they did. So if you look at Barbed Wire, the fight scene with Tamora, it's my husband and I. And then from there, I rolled over into, my word got around like, oh, there's this, you know, Dan Inosanto has this daughter who can, you know, do fights, and I ended up getting called in for some TV show about a teenager who loves to kill vampires named Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So I did the presentation with Joss Whedon, and another partner of mine named Trish, who was more the gymnastic component of it. And so I realized that my martial arts talent was able to get me in the door.
Absolutely.
And so that's kind of how it worked out eventually.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, it was really about survival, you know, and it was good because that led to me working on other big shows and watching other directors, other producers, understanding the rhythm of a set.
Yes.
And that became very important to me because that became like my film school for me.
Oh
yeah.
my God, make some noise for that, y'all. So I want to make sure that I give you guys some time to ask some questions. So I'm going to ask like 1 or 2 more that you guys can line up to jump into this. What I am going to set up in terms of Star Wars, were you fans of the franchise? And that is a ton of opportunity there before you got to join the cast of Ahsoka. I mean, obviously you were in The Mandalorian, so before that even.
Way before.
Okay, talk
absolutely.
to me. How deep was your fandom?
So 77. Aspen, Colorado. Of the family, we had traveled with Dad to. He was doing an international martial arts camp, and there was nothing to do on a Saturday night after the camp, and so my dad and our family and his students, along with the rest of Aspen, Colorado. It's not the same Aspen, Colorado of today. It was really more like a small town, but everybody came out for this movie called Star Wars, and the lines were going around the block. And when we got into that theater, just the beginning of the film, that whole John Williams, you know, introduction of music, and by the time you get to the end of this movie, the movie wasn't even done, you know, and people were already screaming screaming,
Love it.
shouting, standing to their feet. It was like a rock concert. That's the only way I can describe it. And my dad was mesmerized with the whole fight scene between Darth Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi with the lightsaber. And he would, say out loud to the family, like, could you imagine if we could do, you guys could do, or anybody could do, fight 2 lightsabers. And I'm not even joking about this. When we got back to California, my dad found at Toys R Us this 2 extendable lightsabers, those plastic lightsabers, and literally would teach me weaponry with these 2 plastic lightsabers. And so, flash forward to when I'm filming Mandalorian with Rosario, and I'm seeing her on the other end of the bridge, and I'm thinking, oh my God, my dad, the 2 plastic lightsabers, and here I am with my Beskar spear getting ready to do this fight with George Lucas, watching as a Kathleen Kennedy and John and David, and I'm just thinking, this is, wow, that is manifested for me, it's just crazy, but that's how it all came to pass.
Come on, y'all, make some more noise. I love the most that you used the word manifest, and I know that is the term that you love, Eman, about you put something out there, you have the gusto to say it, you got to go for it, and make it happen, which is amazing. What was your first entrance into Star Wars?
I did see one of the movies when I was young.
Okay.
For whatever reason, it didn't reach my town. I was from a small town by the border of Mexico in Texas called Laredo. And it reached it, I know, because I went to Revenge of the Sith. That was the first film I ever saw.
Gotcha.
And I thought it was sick. I was like, that was cool. It's cool, that was gnarly, because that's a gnarly movie. Star Wars is intense.
It gets real.
But it just I didn't know anyone who really did Star Wars or anything, except I was reminded recently that I had this trio of brothers. They were my friends from Marinas, Celestino, Rodrigo, Santiago, and they had this, they had like that house that like your friends have, and they have like their own floor. You're like, wow, you guys have your own floor? And they had this cool thing called the Tactics. They were little action figures that were clickable. And they had different franchises, and they had a bunch of Star Wars ones. And just by being their friend, I was like, oh, I would just come over and play a Tactics. And I remember using Palpatine's like he can the electricity, and Anakin had the longest lightsaber, so because he was the strongest,
right.
You know what I mean? You would spin him and smack people down, and it was like you could click as many as your thing. Wow. And I totally forgot that because I was not a Star Wars person. So to me, it was like any generic action figure. But he sent me a picture of the action figures he bought of me and put them next to the Tactics because he still has them all. And he was like, "Do you remember?" I was like, "Oh, I do now." Like I can't believe that happened. And but this was me still not very conscious of Star Wars.
Sure.
Didn't really know much of it. Grew up on more like anime and cartoons, Dragon Ball Z, Goku, Naruto, Ash,
right.
Yeah, and but it was like my secret thing because if I brought it up at school, I was getting
cool.
Yeah. I was already in hot water.
We understand.
And it wasn't until a couple years ago or a few years ago when something about Space Aladdin was going viral. I know, it's Dave hates that term, by the way. Don't ever say that around Dave. But that's what was on the internet, right? This is the story. And I'm like, there was a time ago when they were doing live action Aladdin. One of my friends tweeted a picture of me next to the picture of Aladdin and was like, retweeted, "You guys think my friend should play Aladdin?" And it like kind of went viral. It went on BuzzFeed, and in a small Austin world, everybody was like, "You're gonna play Aladdin?" And I was like, "I hope so. I'm trying to get out of here, I'm trying to get my mama house, And yeah, like I was stoked, I was taking singing lessons and everything. Never really got more than the general worldwide audition that everyone could submit to, so there was no real action there. But that happened, online, this little Aladdin virality. So when I saw Space Aladdin, I was like, well, dude, Space Aladdin, I'm sure. I'm so spacey, I'm all about the space, man. And so I Google it, and I'm looking it up, and something about Rebels comes up, and I watch Rebels and have this interesting, like personal experience with this character. And I'm like, all right, so I send a bunch of photos to my manager of me with Ezra, like me with short hair, me with long hair, me with like an attempted beard back then. and all these pictures, and I tell them like, hey, when Ezra is casting, I'm going to play him, so use these pictures. I had never booked anything with them. 3 years of being in LA, had been auditioning 1,000 times, and never booked anything, and like, but had already quit acting at this point. Actually, this was just like an interesting like. I was like, oh, that's cool.
Opportunity.
Yeah. And so I sent it to them, and they were kind of like, okay, like, why are you, like, playing a Jedi in Star Wars is not like an easy, it's not like,
slow down.
Yeah, like, you ain't even got like a recurring credit in the show, my boy. And I was just like, well, yeah, this is gonna happen. And then, like 6 months later, within that time frame, I was in King Richard, I was in an A24 movie, and then while I'm shooting that film, I got this one random, the self-tape. And I did the one tape. 2 days later, they confirmed me for Ezra, and it was done. It was like, all right, I guess I did sort of know that was going to happen.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, exactly. And so, and then that's when I got, and my Star Wars journey like truly started.
Come on, y'all, make some noise for that. I invite you guys to line up, ask some questions. Feel free to do so right now. Do not be shy. Go ahead, ask questions. But my last thing I want to say to you, you have broken down walls when it comes to time, gender, culture, nationalities, and I appreciate the effort and work of what you've done to stand up to those closed doors and saying, no, you will let me in, and I will show you what I'm worth.
Thank you very much.
You're very, very welcome.
Thank you.
Likewise.
For that. Absolutely. Hello, how are we doing today?
Hi, good. How are you guys doing?
Hello.
What is one Star Wars character where you're just kind of like, man, I really want to be in a scene with them?
Ooh.
Good.
Yeah.
Thrawn, dude.
Yes.
I haven't been with Thrawn yet. I'm dying to work with Thrawn. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, and it's Lars, it's the guy.
Oh my gosh, that's right.
It's Lars, it's the real Thrawn.
That's just crazy.
And
You're right.
I wish I could have been Thrawn. Whoa. Was that allowed?
No. I'm just saying, Thrawn's not that nice of a person.
I know. I play the hero, but I just think he's a super cool character.
Yes.
And if I didn't want to play Ezra, which I think I would have chosen Ezra if I had to handpick someone. If it wasn't Ezra, I think I would have chosen Thrawn because he's just that interesting to me. And so now because I'm not Thrawn and it's Lars, I really just want to work with Thrawn. Which is another type of getting to play, So definitely Lars and Thrawn, so hopefully that happens.
Oh my gosh, yeah,
Good answer,
that's
good
right. I know this sounds silly. Well, it might sound silly. Some of you who might be in the game room, I like Cal Kestis. I really find, because when I was doing my research, that's kind of how I became more familiar with him, but I would watch the videos with Night Sister Mirren, right? Because I had to do my own read, and I'm like, oh wow, there's this other Jedi, and so I find him very fascinating. And the other one, I would love Vader. I really, right? And third,
Yes,
Darth Maul.
Whoa.
That's very, to me, those make sense. So,
There's gotta be a way.
yeah, there's gotta be a way.
I like the 2 and 3 there too.
Yeah.
I'm Thrawn, and then the other 2 and 3. I'm
Yeah, right?
Vader and
Yeah.
Maul, that'd be so sick.
Look,
How's it going? I was just curious of a favorite moment in the whole saga that kind of stands out to you guys, like a favorite scene or something.
From Ahsoka?
From Ahsoka or the whole
Or the
saga,
entire
any of it.
saga.
I mean, show, movie.
So that's a good question.
okay, while they're pondering, what is yours?
I'd have to say when Luke goes into the cave in Dagobah, sees
Really?
himself.
Okay. That's solid.
Wow.
That's solid.
That's a very,
Yeah.
almost a very philosophical moment,
Right.
too, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right, about facing ourselves and, yeah. Gosh, well, I know, my gosh, that's a really tough one, but there is something about that moment between Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker, and he was saying, I'm your father, and that whole, no, and that was so deep. I just thought, wow, because now they're presenting that there are, I always feel that Star Wars is a way of mirroring our society, all the things that come up, and so sometimes father-son relationships aren't always perfect, and I just kind of thought, philosophically, that's what it's triggering for our society. So I would say that was a very key moment, yeah, for me.
I have one for live action and one for animation because they are sort of different tones, right? My animation is Canaan sacrifice.
Yeah, that is truly.
It really is
It
like
is.
the epitome of
Almost
what
like
I
it
think
doesn't
Star
have to be
Wars
fair for you to
is.
say that.
Yeah,
That's
and
so
then live action is the moment where Luke they're trying to get away after he's had that conversation with Darth Vader, saved him, and he takes his helmet off so he can see him one more time, and he's like, I want to save you, and he says, you did save me, like you saved me. I'm getting emotional right now, because that moment, I think, is the best part of the saga.
It really is. Redemption coming
That's
around.
great. Hey,
Yeah.
let it out. Don't fight the force. Don't fight the force. I love it.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Sure,
Thank
great
you.
question.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
So I was curious, especially no one's curious. So were you aware of like the fandom and how like intense they can be and kind of the like the character that you're like representing?
Right, because it's a huge responsibility.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a huge mantle. It's like when Rosario had to play Ahsoka.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a huge thing.
I was, aware. I was pretty aware, but very fortunate in like a pretty immediate knowing that, like, I think there was like I saw like 5-ish episodes, a few that Dave wanted me to see, the first one that I had seen already, and this one extra one that I saw. And just in those 5 episodes, I mean, I loved Ezra. Like, I just thought, oh, what a pure kid, right? He just grew up, he had to learn his way. I feel similar to that. And because I loved him so much, and just already felt so similar to him in the little that I was, and I read a lot about him. I didn't watch the series before, but I read all about him and was like, oh, dude, this is so right. I was so excited to bring it to life that I didn't even have thoughts of like, oh no, what if this doesn't work, or that doesn't work. I was just like, oh my God, I can't wait because they're gonna love this, and they're gonna love this, and I'm gonna do that, and they're gonna love that because I would love to see Ezra do that. You know, like, I think this is appropriate. I think it's a similar, maybe sense, I don't want to speak for him, but to Dave being a super fan, and that's why he knows what to write.
Yeah.
Because he's sort of coming from the perspective of, oh, I would love if this is how that played out.
Right.
And that's how it sort of felt, creating and bringing Ezra to life. So I didn't totally feel any pressure, but I will say the online like memes and the Twitter community, that was all very interesting and new to me, and very fun. Jabba the Hutt, Blueberry, you know, like all the jokes, and that was new, and but like a refreshing thing. It definitely was like, whoa, like this character goes so hard, like like he is worldwide.
That's right.
Like, I didn't realize that necessarily, but by the time I did realize it, we were on the other side. You know, so it was like, oh, okay, good. I didn't have to know that before we shot. So kind of got off scotch-free.
Can I ask a small follow-up
Please.
question? Okay. Do you have anything to say to people who don't think you captured Ezra as no offense, but like
Yeah, no, I got something to say.
Put a beat on.
Yeah.
I genuinely, it's a very valid question. I think if they don't like it, they just don't like it yet.
There it is.
Yeah.
That is the most Ezra way to answer it. Perfect. If you don't like it yet, take your time. You will.
Thank you.
Hello.
Howdy. So my question was, of all the options in Hu Yang's workshop, why return to Cain and Saber? Of all the other possibilities you could have made.
That's a hefty question.
Did the others hear that question? It's a
Say
great
it one
question.
more time.
Okay, sure thing. So of all the options in Hu Yang's workshop, why return to Cain and not forge a new saber after being gone for so long?
I think during his time alone, and for all of us during our times alone, we often go back to the most positive experiences we've had with the people who loved us, especially if we're all alone. And so when you think back on Ezra's experience, the most prominent figure in his life was Kanan, the most positive figure, the most influential figure. And so my personal belief is that during his time away, his connection to the Force got stronger, and in a way, his understanding of Kanan and why Kanan did what he did and taught him what he taught him and all that became so deep that it is simply an act of reverence, an act of adoration. Like, oh, I'm only a Jedi. I only wield the lightsaber because of Kanan Jarrus.
Right.
And so it only seems appropriate for me to make a brand new one in honor of him. So that's my thought on it.
I love
Yeah.
it. I love it. I think philosophically, Star Wars, we talk about it. Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
So Eman mentioned that there was a couple of episodes that Dave made him watch, and in talking to you, Diana, you mentioned that you've just been a fan forever. And I'm guessing Eman's maybe gone back and watched some more Rebels post. Did you guys have a favorite episode or storyline throughout that show, since this is kind of like a follow-up, sort of, sometime later?
I go back to Rebels when Kanan and Ezra are discovering Darth Vader. I always thought that moment where they're like, "Who is it?" Do you remember what that was? Was that season 2? Wasn't that? Yeah, between that of his. Yeah, right. I always loved that. That moment of discovery. I thought that was a great moment.
We're lucky we got out alive.
Yeah. Like they never, because you think about it, because Kanan never grew up around the temple, right? So he's discovering that force, that really took me. Yeah.
I loved the Twilight of the Suns, I believe. It's the episode where he Twilight of the Apprentice.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Ahsoka Vader.
Yeah,
That's
Ahsoka
great,
Vader
yeah.
episode. I just thought also like the stuff between Darth Maul and Ezra. I love that stuff. Like I personally am Ezra, and I'm on the good side, and may the Fourth be with us. But Revenge of the Fifth is also going to be celebrated. You know what I mean? I think it's just as cool, and so I really love the arc he has with Darth Maul and the dark side, and using his emotions for power. Because Ezra just happens to be a unique Jedi in that he keeps his attachments and he learns to be in the light even with that. So I think there's more to explore there personally. I don't necessarily think he goes dark, but I think it's fascinating that he had that experience and he didn't get turned. You know, it's unlike Anakin or unlike Luke. You know,
He knows the lesson better than most.
right.
Can I say something in follow-up to Diana? I remember vividly when that Vader episode dropped for season 2, when we see them about to get on the shuttle and the music cuts.
Yeah.
And Vader's just there and you hear the breathing.
Oh yeah.
I just vividly remember as a kid watching that, immediately thinking, oh, that's why these guys aren't in the movie. They framed it so good.
Yeah, right, great point.
Well played.
Yeah.
Well played.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. So, how did you feel trying to take a character like Ezra, who we've only ever seen animated, and put him into a live-action environment, and then go even further and have him be aged up?
Ooh, good question.
Great question. I felt first and foremost honored. You know, I was like, oh, what an honor to bring someone that is so beloved to live action. And then I just felt very excited, very grateful. Every day that we did a lot of stunt rehearsing. I got to do all of my own fight choreography and most of my own wire stuff. And so every day I was just thanking my lucky stars that I was healthy and I could move my body in that way and I could do jumps and flips and kicks and stuff like that. And every day I get a little bit more info about Ezra from the people around me, the creators. You know, Dave would come in and whisper one thing, I'd be like, oh, that's brilliant, like little gems and keys. I'm sure you did it with everyone.
Yeah.
And so I just felt like very receptive, you know, very open and grateful, like, because it was constant. The whole time I was shooting, it was like another cool thing about Ezra, or another cool thing about his origin, or another cool thing that he does, and I'd be like, thank you. It was just a lot of thank you, and in my head, a lot of thank you. So mostly just extremely grateful. And also, you know, from when, however old you are, I've been, you know, punching and kicking the air, right? So also feeling somewhat validated and like, I kind of always wanted to be an action ninja warrior, space cowboy samurai, and it feels good to be that, you know? So there was also the level of like, all right, man, I'm doing it now. So there was that too. Thank you for that question.
Okay, thank you.
The word of today is manifest. Hello. You're good. You're
You
good.
got it.
Hi, I know all of us within the fandom have had these hypothetical conversations of if this character and this character were to fight, who would win? So with you being a new fan and you having extensive history and like all this choreography knowledge, what two characters across the whole saga, it doesn't matter timelines, they don't have to be in the same timelines, would you love to see duke it out, and who do you think would win?
Oh my god.
So we have to pick our warriors, choose your fighter, and then we have to decide who wins. Okay. And they're not necessarily, it's not like whoever I choose is me, it's just who I choose to fight. It's my champion.
Right.
Yes.
And her champion.
Choose your champion and let him
Oh,
know.
okay.
Okay, so
Choose-
not my character.
No, you're choosing your champion to fight versus my champion. Okay. Hey, I can choose anybody?
Yeah, it could even be a video game character. It could
Okay.
be any of them.
Okay.
All right, so my choice would be C-3PO and K-2SO.
Oh, wow.
You already know who won that fight.
That's so yeah, now I'm like thinking of funny things like Chopper versus BB-8, you know, like just short battles, you know, or Chopper versus Vader is just so fun. Oh, sorry. So funny.
I was always wishing a round two somehow of Mace Windu and Palpatine.
Yes.
Palpatine,
Wait,
yeah.
I would totally, I love it.
Round two, I would
choose
like that.
Mace.
Yeah.
I love Mace. My great grandmaster. Shadow Mace. Shadow Mace. Oh my god. Let's go Mace. Let's go Gramps. That was cool. Wait, who do you think would win?
Mace.
Yeah, okay, cool. Same.
We're going for a round two.
No, yeah, we're going to the same team now.
Yeah.
Because I mean, he almost had that round one.
Yeah, he did.
So Anakin
Exactly.
he had it. Like,
Anakin's a beast. So.
Hello. First off, I'd like to thank you both for coming to Cleveland. It was an honor meeting
Thank
both of
you,
you
guys.
guys. I've kind of one question each. Eman, I was also going to ask what it was like taking that animated character that was only ever in animation and bringing it to live action, but more specifically a character that was missing for a decade.
Yeah.
And so taking, who was a child and he did have to grow up more, but a kid, and now he's an adult, but was in isolation and on the run, from Thrawn for so long, and taking that and having to both capture that same energy of the character while having it in a more mature stage of his life.
Yeah, well, interesting alignment here, which I think is just when you're walking in your purpose and you're following your passion and what you love, you will find this alignment and things will be this way for you. I had personally gone through a very unique, like 6 to 9 month journey of being very isolated, being very alone. I mean, it was sort of the latter half of the pandemic, and then that next year, I stopped talking to a lot of people, and it was just, a lot of people went through these sort of callings of the past, right? Therapy and spirituality, and had like different beliefs starting to go into effect with like putting them into practicality, and it was this interesting sort of lonely-ish journey, right? I didn't have many people around me who I could share in this experience with, although I held fast to this quote by Carl Jung, I think, and it is, if you do your work true and conscientiously, unknown friends will come to find you, right? And so that quote would have me bawling, because I was, just going on this specific spiritual journey, so by myself. And sure enough, after enough time, I started to connect with people on the same, with the same perspective and on the same paths as I was, and developed a community that was very, seeking of peace and love and light and goodness and growth. And as that all started to happen, other things started to land into my life, and one of those things was Ezra. And then I find out he's gone for 10 years, and all he's doing is he's with these peaceful people, and he's basically just meditating all the time. And I'm like, that's crazy, because that was just like my last 9 months of my life, And I'm at such a much calmer place, and such a more, I have so much more of a knowing and more of a confidence in why I'm here and who I am and what I am. And that's when Ezra came, and it felt very like, oh, I now somehow, by the grace of God, get to express a newfound knowing of myself through this character named Ezra Bridger. And so there was a very specific and very conscious alignment between his literal 10-year absence and my personal time going through this journey. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And then for Diana specifically, but for both of you, I was going to ask, with your background in stunt work, do you have a favorite fight scene that you've been in ever, or specifically in Star Wars, or if you want a favorite like duel in Star Wars as a whole that you would say is like the most impressive when it comes to what you like in a
that I
action
participate, or just in general looking
whatever you prefer.
Well, I do love the fight scene that Rosario and I did.
Yes.
That's up there.
Yes.
Most impressive, honestly.
I mean, yeah, I do love how that was put together for us, and so I love that fight scene. Oh gosh, that's a really hard one. I don't know. I wish I could say there are just so many great fight scenes I've seen throughout the course of the whole Star Wars saga. So I don't know. I love it all. I love it all, to be honest with you. And I do have mad respect for every choreographer that it puts themselves on the line, the stunt team, because it is massive, the kind of work that goes into putting it all together. So, and I respect every artist's process, because it is an art form to put a fight scene together.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you both very much.
All right, we're within the last 5 minutes, so we have to do the Sith lightning round. So, as quick as possible.
That's going to be harder because I have to. But if Ezra was able to take a lightsaber, which form do you think he would use now?
Which form of lightsaber do you think you would use?
Oh. Yeah, were you about to elaborate?
Well, the lightsaber form.
Right,
Oh,
yeah,
which
that's what I
lightsaber
thought.
combat?
That's what I
Okay.
thought.
I thought you meant color.
To be honest, I'm not very well versed in the differences of them. Like, I don't know the names of them.
I guess
I
more
would.
aggressive or more passive.
Oh, I understand that. Okay. Now, after all his time alone, I don't know. I gotta like delineate myself from the character, because I went right away like, oh, aggressive, because I just want to. I want to use a lightsaber a lot because they just gave it to me. But Ezra's probably using more of a mix now. So more of a neutral balance between using the Force and using the saber. Whereas I think in the past he got kind of gung-ho, was like, I'm growing up and I know how to use this now. Was like very, very forward. I'm thinking of that one hallway scene where he does the super spin, and then it's a very iconic thing. I've been trying, I'm like, I want to learn that spin kick move because I really want to do that. It's super hard. But I don't know, I just think Ezra will likely be more of a balanced form. But me, Eman, totally want to be more aggressive. Totally want to be more like an Anakin. That's more my goal.
And hopefully a quicker one from Diana.
Go for it.
If we could bring any of the villains from the Legends, which would you like to see brought into canon?
Any of the villains from Legends?
That's really hard. I will say this, I would love to see Mara Jade in live action. And I know she started off working for puppets and then she falls, but there's something about her character, so, because she's from light and dark, I don't know. For me, for some reason, I just love her. Yeah.
RJ's a good choice.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hello.
I have two questions. I'll be quick with the first one, right? So you keep talking about how big you are on the lightsaber. So I keep seeing all these booths out there. If you could build your lightsaber, like little things, like the exposed kyber crystal and stuff like that, what would make your Eman lightsaber yours? What little things would you put?
There'd be a lot of gold on mine. Really like gold era.
Yeah.
And I'd have something from Darth Maul. I think I'd probably have it be like a double staff, right? Double-sided, but would have them like separated. You know what I mean? Kind of like Ahsoka.
Yeah.
Because Ahsoka, she never puts them together. Mine would be like I could duel and then I could click them together.
Yes.
Cal has that?
Yeah.
Oh, I've never played the video game. I gotta play that. That's sick, dude. Cal has that? Well, lucky, dude.
I don't want to leave you out, so if you could build your own lightsaber, what would you build?
I'm sorry, say it again?
I don't want to leave you out, so if you could do your own lightsaber, what would be your
I know how I would construct it using Morgan's philosophy of working with metal. I would have the hilt of the lightsaber made out of the best scars, so if somebody tries to hit her in the hand, it already protects her. Yeah, that's what I would do.
That is next level.
Like a guard.
Thank you.
Right, yeah.
Right,
Guard?
yeah, like a guard. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, like
Oh, yeah. Right, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I
That's
would
the
do that.
question.
Please don't ever get a lightsaber. All the Jedi die.
That would be my night
About
sister
music,
spin.
Yeah.
Yes, especially rap music. I heard
Yeah.
you say something about rap. I'm big on music, especially rap. Can I find your music anywhere?
Yeah, my artist name is Dragon Wolf.
Yes.
Wolf spelled with a U.
Okay.
And the Instagram is DragonWolf_Army. So enlist and join. And yeah, Dragon Wolf on everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for asking.
Thank you. And our final question. Hello.
Hey.
Hi. What do you think about how Speed's relationship with Ezra will be going forward? Since she kind of like gave up the galaxy really to find Ezra.
Before you even attempt to answer that, this has to be a hypothetical because Disney has shooters. Very well could just be testing to see if he reveals anything. So hypothetically, if he was to consider this, it could be. Good answer. That's the answer right there.
One of love, that's for sure.
There it is.
All love, always.
FanExpo Cleveland, make some noise.
Thank you all so much for the first week with you.
You guys go back to your exhibits for the rest of the day, or you guys done for today?
I think we're heading back.
Okay, so then y'all really gotta make some noise as they walk out of here because this is it for them for the weekend. Thank you guys so much.
Tales of the Empire.
Yes,
Tales of
Tales of the Empire.
Empire.
It's probably been on
Thank you,
the show
baby.
to watch that.